Hey guys! All right, we're jumping back into Genesis 16. We ended on verse 6, and we're going to start with verse 7. Really quick recap. So this has to do with Hagar, which is the Egyptian servant of Sarai, who Sarai gave to Abram in order to bear a child so it might be raised and considered as one of Sarah's children, not to be Hagar's child. She was not given as a wife. She was given as a surrogate mother. And the idea of the wife part, meaning that they were allowed to have intercourse. And that's what Sarah permitted. It was not for her to become a second wife or even to take the place of Sarah or Sarai. However, that seemed to become Hagar's mindset once she found herself pregnant. And then we talked about how Sarai was harsh with her. However, Abram said, do whatever. It's your girl, right? Do whatever to her. What is right in your sight. There's a lot of, from chapter 15 and chapter 16, there's a lot of see, your sight, things that are happening on that end, or that side. You know, the Lord deals with us in hearing, and he deals with us in vision, but he speaks more often to us in that still small voice, in the hearing. Be still and hear and know that I am God, more than with our eyes. The world tends to do with our eyes. If you remember with Adam and Eve, when Eve saw the fruit that it was good, right? She didn't hear. But when the Lord deals with them, it says that the voice comes, hearing. So that's something to think about when you read, to watch the things that come through the eyes and things that come through the ears. So anyway, now we find ourselves at verse 7. Let's go there. It says, and the messenger of the Lord found her by the spring of the water in the wilderness by the spring on the way to Shur. Okay, two real things I want to talk about this. Really three. Again, we're seeing this pattern being laid out of the Egyptian exodus of Israel from Egypt. We're seeing a pattern, kind of what's happened to Hagar, going to redefine itself with what's going to happen to Israel. As I had said before, it's somewhat of a shadow of a measure for measure. This is what happened on an individual scale, and this is what's going to end up being repeated on a national scale. So we have her out in the wilderness. Israel goes out in the wilderness, right? The angel of the Lord finds her there by the water. Well, we have that later when Israel leaves. The Spirit of the Lord, the messenger of the Lord, angel of the Lord, actually is the one who leads Israel out, goes before them. And then we also have where they go in Exodus 15, they're going to go before water. That water is going to be a big deal. Well, here we have Hagar leaving, and water is a big deal. The word Sarah, that area is really interesting because that actually is going to be the area in which Ishmael later is going to live in this region. So I find it interesting that as she's departing to go to this region, later that's actually where she's going to end up. The messenger of God, wow, I mean, think about it. The angel of God, the messenger of God is literally coming to see her. That's amazing. Some may say, well, that's Gabriel. My Bible has it capitalized as the angel of the Lord. So I would suggest that this is the living word. This is the pre-incarnate logos that becomes incarnated in Jesus later on. And the fact that we see in Genesis 12 and 13 that Yahweh comes to visit Abram. But here we have the messenger of Yahweh. It's not on the same level as it is with Abram. However, because this is dealing with a child of Abram, the Lord is going to be involved. All right, verse 8, and he said, Hagar, Sarah's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress. Okay, right there, everyone knows their role. The living God, the messenger of God says, hey, servant of Sarah. Not, hey, new wife of Abram. No, she never lost her position as the servant of Sarai. And it's proven right here by God. The angel of the Lord calls her by her position. And you notice she says, well, I'm running from my mistress. She acknowledges what her position is. She doesn't say, well, I'm leaving my husband and then that other wife. She acknowledges it's her mistress. So everyone knows where they should be and the role they are supposed to be in. But some are fighting that role. And that's just being proven by the way the titles are discussed here. It says, where have you come from? Okay, this is not the angel Lord going, oh, hey, where were you and where are you going? Like, does it know? The word here for where, the first where, is actually the same one that we have in Genesis 3. And the same one we have in Genesis 4:9. The one used with the one used with Adam and Eve, and the one that's used with Cain. Where's your brother? And the other one, Adam, where are you? Those wheres, remember they're the AY, the AI. I don't know how to say it. I or Aya, meaning more like, oh my gosh, what, why? Where are you? What are you doing? So here the angel of the Lord is like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving? What do you think you're doing by running? This isn't the way this should be. You shouldn't be leaving. But then when he says, where are you going? That where is more of the, well, actually, it's not AFO like where, it's walk. Where are you walking? Where is it that you think you're going to go and have life? Where? Because your role hasn't been diminished. Your role hasn't been completed in the family, in the Hebrew family with Abraham. So her response, let's look. Then the Lord continues in verse 9. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, return to your mistress and humble yourself under her hand. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted. Okay, so here the Lord is saying, let's correct this. You need to return. You need to return to the house of Abram, to the tent of Sarai, to your mistress. The Lord is never going to send someone to a terrible place. Sarai wasn't mean to her. She didn't mistreat Hagar at all. If you think about it, there must have been a trusting relationship because she's saying, Abram, take Hagar to have my child. She isn't like, oh, go get the woman in the corner. Their history, in my opinion, and again, this is all speculation, but in my opinion, their history is one of a good relationship, not a bad one. Sarai is not evil to Hagar. They had a tiff, and Sarai scolded Hagar for her negative response to the pregnancy, okay, and to looking down at her. She basically was helping to keep everyone in the position that they needed to be in and that they should be in. One thing I think of is, there's a verse, I can't remember where it is, and I think it's Paul who actually says it, who talks about better for us to judge ourselves than to be judged. And I kind of find that as an example right here, where the Lord is telling Hagar to go and humble yourself. In other words, go correct the matter. You were misbehaving. Your response was inappropriate. Now go and humble yourself. Go and repent and make it right. Okay? She's given the opportunity to do this. But not without the Lord saying, and by the way, the child you have is going to be a great nation. So she gives her hope. She gives her something to hold on to as a mother. Not just that she's going to have this child and lose it, but that she's going to have this child, but great things are going to come. This is an extension of the promise to Abraham, or to Abram from chapter 15, and we'll see even more, and from chapter 12. This is the promise that his seed, right, is going to be nations. And Ishmael is going to be one of those nations. They're not all through Isaac and Jacob. They're also through Ishmael. But the covenant is only with Isaac and his lineage. There is no covenant with Ishmael. but there is still a promise to increase. And there's nothing that says that necessarily she tells Sarai or Abram this, because we're going to see in chapter 17 that the Lord explains this to Abram. And so this, I think, maybe one of those secrets she holds close to her heart, kind of like Mary holds the secret close to her heart about Yeshua, Jesus. And anyway, let's move on. Verse 11. And the angel of the Lord said to her, see, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. You know, I didn't look up the word Ishmael, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't mean something like to hear. But I should have looked that up. I just thought of it. But anyway, it would be something if you want to go to a strong concordance or like blueletter.com, blueletterbible.com or something like that. Look up what the word Ishmael means. You might find that there's a connection to this. Notice who names him. The Lord. The angel of the Lord gives him the name. In verse 12 it says, and he is to be a wild man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers. Well, I'm not so sure that as a mom, if I heard that about my child, I'd be like, yes, he's a wild thing. I don't know. I might be like, well, just the fact that these are going to be the attributes of this child just is a good reason why, this isn't the promised child. This is not going to be the promised seed. Those are not the behaviors of the promised seed. But one thing that I love is, I don't know that this is truly lines up, but it makes me think of this. We are told in Romans 11 that it's the wild olive tree, wild olive branch that's grafted in, right? It's the wild one. Well, as I suggested or mentioned last time, Galatians 4 does the comparison with Hagar and with Sarai. It's Ishmael and it's Isaac, the promised seed, and then the not promised seed, but the one from the flesh and one from the spirit. However, the wild one here, he's called the wild one. But we know that the Lord accepts the wild one in and grafts them into Israel, into Isaac, into the covenant side, promise side. So when I read that, and then I read about the wild hints in the New Testament, it just makes me go, oh, is this a usage that is to make us maybe think of, wow, even though Ishmael was not a part of the promise, he was invited to be in it, to come in through Isaac's side, like we are going to and do come in through Jesus into that covenant. Anyway, let's move to verse 13. And she called the name of Yahweh, who spoke to her. You are the El who sees. So El is like the Almighty One. That means the powerful one who sees. And she said, even here have I seen him who sees me. So she acknowledges, wow, the Lord sees me. Remember up there it said that the Lord heard her affliction, because Yahweh heard her affliction. Oh my gosh, that's what we hear again in, I believe it is Exodus 2. The Lord heard the affliction, the cries of the afflicted of Israel, and he responds. Again, you see the laying out of the pattern, measure for measure. She goes out in the wilderness, she cries. She's being abused, she cries out. The Lord hears, and the Lord directs her, and the angel of the Lord directs her. Just like we're going to see with Israel in Exodus. So she says, you are the God who sees. That's how she refers to him. That's how she recognizes him. Verse 14, this is why the well is called Ber Laharoi. See? It is between Kadesh and Bered. That's going to come up again, Genesis 24, because that's where we're going to find Isaac. Isn't that interesting? We're going to actually find the promised seed, the promised child, receiving his wife at this well area. I don't know exactly what to do with that, but it's amazing, and we'll talk about it more when we get to Genesis 24. All right, now verse 15. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Okay, so we know again that this is a total of 11 years afterwards, right? So chapter 16 is actually about a 1 year event, all right? 1 year from Sarah saying, take my servant, to him being born. And I say a year because, it does take 9 months, right? And here at the end, we have the child being born, and we see that Abram is now 86 years old. And at the beginning of the chapter, it says that he dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. I wonder where it says that Abram named his son Ishmael. I wonder if Hagar told him that the Lord said, hey, this child's name is Abram. If this child's name is Ishmael, or if the Lord also gave that to Abram, and that was confirmation to that was confirmation to Hagar that Ishmael was to be the name. Okay, that brings us to the end of chapter 16, and it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.